Hey, I'm Kyle Morris from the Unlikely Candidates, and I'm hanging out with Rob from Front Row Live.
I got to show you something before we start this interview.
All
All right? We kind of just talked about it. So,
yeah.
you know that guy right there?
Man, that is baby Jared right there.
This is Jared in 2007 when he was in another band.
Is that you right
And that's
there?
me with super long hair.
God, our haircuts, dude. That is amazing. I had the same one. I just had Jared minus the mullet in the back. Yeah. Wow.
Taking it back.
That's great.
Taking it back.
That's so funny, dude.
So it was funny that you kind of asked me about that right before this interview because I was meaning to start it with that.
Really? Yeah. That's amazing. I wish that he could see that. Jared, it's a really great, embarrassing picture of you that you would probably love to see.
And it's still online. I'm not taking it down.
Up there. There's some great like emo Jared pictures out there. Some of the run.
If you think that one's bad, there's worse.
Oh, there's some terrible. There's a YouTube video. He'd be very embarrassed. Google pool boy, and you might find it. And if you do, you're in for a treat.
Man.
I'll tell you about it later.
That should be merch for the next tour.
Oh, it's so funny. It's so funny.
Well, dude, I'm glad to finally hang out with you. You guys have been passing through my neck of the woods over and over, but schedules never kind of work out.
Yeah.
I love the sound. I love the band because it's a nostalgic sound. It's I grew up with the pop punk scene. I grew up with that Warped Tour scene and that alternative scene. And it's like listening to this, it takes me back.
That's cool.
But yet you still have your own sound.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of that like energy, like those bands had so much like energy. Like those live shows were always awesome, and like we all grew up going to those type of shows. So that kind of like drama and like just pure energy and like feeling, like I think that we've taken that with us. Like we were kind of on the outskirts of that scene, like when me and Cole were just like doing an acoustic thing. And then we kind of like when we went to college, we got into like Bob Dylan and the Beatles and like the Strokes, and then like just kind of forked off. But like that energy and passion from those days will always still be there.
Right.
Yeah. But it's I think we've built something kind of our own out of this little bubble that we've been in for a while.
I mean, I definitely, just listening to the tracks, it makes me want to go to a live show. That's, I can't say that a lot of artists today kind of give me that feel when I listen to the record. So it's like, that's what I like about listening to the music today. Talk to me about how you guys get together and create, the tracks on the record.
A lot of it is
Which is Danger to Myself. It's out now.
Yeah, check it out. Basically, usually it starts with a track. Like either like a couple guys in the band or like Brent, our guitarist, will build a track out. And then I will come in and kind of just freestyle stuff until something connects, and then we just kind of build it up and fill it out from there. Yeah.
Now you mentioned starting with Cole back in high school with an acoustic duo. How does that transition to the way that you create your music today? Is it the same kind of style in writing that you do? Did it change a lot because now there's a full band?
It changed a lot. Like we did that for a long time, and it was really just born out of necessity. Like we came from like a town that like nobody played music in. Like literally we went through, just to find people to show up to practice, we went through like 12 musicians. Like wow. It's just like we were the only people in our town who were doing it. So like we wrote songs with acoustic guitars, and like that first album was influenced by a lot of like acoustic elements just because like that's kind of all we had. Like whenever Brent came into the band, Brent had a background in production. Like he was like a little like 12-year-old savant at production, and was like, cranking out productions when he was like, 14 or something like that. So whenever he came into the band, we started doing stuff with like production based writing. So he'd make a track and I'd kind of write on it, but we'd still go back and like do the acoustic thing too. Right. But yeah, it's doing the acoustic. It's so much more earnest. Like you're singing, literally it's just you and a guitar. It's like feels very confessional and like, real. But productions, like you can really get into the style. Like it brought out a lot more character in, my voice and kind of writing personality, because I could kind of step into these worlds.
Right. What made you kind of want to switch over to having the full band? Because it's hard when you go with just two people and then now you have to focus on, you know, four other members.
I mean, even when we were doing acoustic shows, like we were still like rocking out like we wanted to be like a huge full band. It was really just like we wanted to be rock and roll, like, and have like a full band and have like that wild rock and roll like show and performance. And then from the second that we got a full band, like it was like just sloppy drunken mess like that we kind of molded out of for like a long time. So we got to live those, you know, it was basically so that we could do a proper rock and roll setup. Yeah.
Now growing up, you know, with pop punk and you know, the pop rock kind of world, I remember Texas was a huge location for that kind of scene, for pop rock and like acoustic artists.
It was massive, actually. Like, and really there hasn't been anything like that, because like that scene, and that literally while me and Cole were doing it, like all those bands were there. It was like there was a lot of hardcore bands, like was it Memphis Mayfire and like you know, like Forever the Sickest Kids, like a lot of bands like that were pop and whatever. And like me and Cole were like young watching those, and we were like, whoa, like these people live in our town, like we could potentially do something. And they all got signed. Yeah. And then like that was it, all those bands got signed and left, and like literally the scene was pretty much empty after that because they all graduated.
They took all the artists.
It was the scene was gone after all those after the record labels came in. We were like, whoa, like this is an actual thing. Like out here in LA, like everybody kind of knows that, like they know the routes. Like, you know, like 10 people who have made it in the industry. Like where we were from, like we'd never even thought that was like a possibility. So.
And as you move forward to today, like, do you feel like it's hard to come out of Texas as an artist?
Yeah, I do. Just because all the industries are everywhere else. I mean, I think if you are really good, like really, really good, like people will find you eventually. But yeah, it is way more difficult doing it out there than in a hub like New York or Nashville or LA. Like Austin's got a little bit. They have a scene where like people come in and out of, so you could get found in that area, but like North Texas, I'd say it's a little bit more difficult for sure.
Now, how did you guys kind of break out from Texas and being able to tour the way that you guys toured today? Because you guys have done Dirty Heads, you guys have done Fall Out Boy, you know, the list goes on. And then on top of that, you got signed to Sony. So how are you able to get discovered after all of that happened?
To be honest, it's like power of the radio. Like radio is what got us all started. Like Follow My Feet started getting picked up on alternative radio and like AAA radio. And then that's really how all the attention got brought to us. Yeah. And then like, yeah, we were at South by Southwest, which is like a perfect time for a lot of like industry people to see you, which is only 3 hours away from our like home. So we already had this radio stuff going on with this song, and then combined with like us just having like completely like molded our live set into something just very visceral and real and kind of like reckless. And like the second that we did that our showcase in like South by Southwest, after that song was coming up, like 2 days later we were flying out to New York to go showcase for labels. Like after that show, like we played a great show, and after that there were like 6 or 7 labels like in the alley, like all like volleying for us, which was like the weirdest thing ever. Yeah, like it was totally like you know, the cliche rock and roll like story. I was like, it was bizarre, but it all worked out. Yeah.
And then now, you know, you're promoting a new single. You have a deluxe version of Danger to Myself out. Take me into the studio of Danger to Myself. You know, getting this created. Who did you work with as far as a producer? I know you said Brent is also a producer.
Yeah, Brent was there. We were working on some of the tracks. I worked on really like everything up until this point. Up until this EP has literally pretty much just been us. Like pretty much entirely. Like Bed of Liars was pretty much just like me and Brent, and like mainly doing most of it, and like some of the band and like a little bit of like outside production, but that was like all us. Danger to Myself was kind of like a lot of the sounds that we made with this producer in New York, Greg Wattenberg and his team of writers, Jason Bell, Jordan Miller, Derek Furman, John Alicastro, Mike Laurie. Like I had like I mean like when you're in a label, like they make you do co-writes with a lot of people, and it's just something that you like have to do. Like it's even the big bands, they make you do it. But like it never really clicked and nothing came of it. And then I found producers that actually like I just kind of clicked with them well, and they clicked with our sound. Yeah. It's just like any other band, like whenever they go into a studio, they find a producer that they want. Like every band finds a producer that they like that can be that outside opinion, that George Martin to the Beatles type thing. And that's kind of what these guys were to me. Like they were all different producers operating in the same floor, and then we brought our band in there, and they just like we just kind of clicked. Our band and like their production like advice like made this whole EP essentially.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, going into work with them, like how did the songs that you release, how did these songs get created? Why were these songs created specifically?
It was just kind of like a conscious effort to do something more like cuz they could tell like I do have like that big kind of like rock like edge, like grit to my voice that I really hadn't exposed before. And like we were starting to write stuff like that as a band, and they saw it and were like, hey, let's try this. Like this is you guys. Like you guys are not, I guess, like capitalizing on this exactly. So let's bring our, like, we know kind of production wise how to like add to that flair. So like those songs were definitely born out of it, like that big kind of stadium alt, like rock vibe.
At the same time, it almost makes you kind of want to dance. The drums is like the drums sound familiar. It's like I said earlier, it's like a nostalgic sound, but you can't really pick and choose like, oh, you sound like, because you kind of have your own sound at the same time. But drums in general, like I just, you know, listening to your drummer throughout the whole tracks, like I love the sound that he has. Like I don't know if it's like I'm explaining that correctly, but it's
it's like, I mean, like really you want people to move to like any song. So like that's an awesome thing that like anyone can start to dance to those songs, and it's got that kind of like feel to it because you want people to move at your shows. So
you mentioned co-writes. You co-wrote with Dirty Heads on Celebrate, and I noticed that they have their version and you have your version as well.
Right. I mean, actually, that was a song that we like did with the producers, Jason Bell and Jordan Miller. Like they were like, hey, like we have this like track that's like awesome, and then I was like, all right, yeah, cool, let's like write this, let's do this track. Like they kind of had an idea for something, and then I went in there and like we wrote it with them. And then the Dirty Heads later heard the track. Like after our version was done, and then they heard the track and they're like, whoa, this is like amazing. Like, do you mind if we rap on this and do the verses? Like, we think this could be like a really cool thing. Like, we feel this concept a lot. And they did this really like passionate, they brought, like mine was kind of like the jaded rock star kind of thing, just like, you know, about touring and just feeling like kind of out of it. And they just did this really emotional, like heartfelt kind of like plea of the musician, like, you know, about their like families and stuff like that, and like the stuff that they've missed being on the road. And it was like, that's kind of how that whole thing came to be. It just turned into a very like emotional, passionate song. And
they definitely raised up the piano on their version as well. Like that's what made me like, it's the same song, but it's like it's two different things.
Like it's two completely different vibes for sure, which is cool. Plus, it's like it's really cool that there's like a rap, like a hip hop feel like ballad on alternative rock charts. Like I don't know who else would be able to do that besides like the Dirty Heads.
That's true.
So, which is a really cool thing to be able to like have that in our genre, like that type of song.
It's like you're opening new doors for the music scene.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I hope to see more stuff like that. That'd be cool. Yeah.
Let's talk about the latest single, Oh My Dear Lord. Tell me about this track. What was it about this track that made you create it?
There just seemed to be like, it was so like epic sounding, and it's like really interesting. Like we're from Texas, like we've been immersed in like country and like gospel and stuff like that. It's completely unavoidable in Texas. It's just everywhere. Like even as little like punk rockers, where we were just like, you know, like we hate country, we hate all this stuff, like we want to do rock and roll. like it still gets into it's part of your like musical DNA just by osmosis. And I heard a little bit of that like soulfulness in this track, like not really like those styles, but like kind of like an alt rock genesis of that. And like I kind of almost imagined like I don't know, like an alternative rock, like Chance the Rapper type vibe to it. And I just kind of picked up on all that. So it's got some like hip hop vibe to it, and it's got some gospel, and then it's just like also like very rock and raw. And like I literally use like every part of my voice. Like there's falsetto, which I had never really done on a track before. Like I'd never really done that.
Just testing the waters now.
So literally, it was just like I threw all my bag of tricks into that song, and it turned out awesome.
So now that you tortured yourself with that track, like moving forward, is that what you were planning on even trying from now on?
I think it's awesome. No, like literally after I've done that track, people that like that I like work with and songs that I do, they're like that, like let's do that again. Like the song that I wrote with like Greg in New York after that, and this this producer Pom Pom, like they wanted to hear that falsetto like verse again. So that's become like a trademark thing just from that song, like that I never thought would happen. So that's interesting.
How did you even come up to do the falsetto for the very first time if it's something that you've never done before? That's a scary thing to try.
I mean, like I've always like enjoyed my own falsetto. It's like I never really got to use it in a song.
So you use it behind closed doors, but just not.
Yeah, like when I'm writing or just trying not to be loud. Like everyone kind of sings in falsetto, and like it just sounded so right going in and out of like singing those falsettos in that verse. And it's like falsetto's kind of got that tenderness to it. And the track is like, even though there is like a lot of bravado going through it, like it's also got a very like emotional, exposed kind of core to it. So it just kind of worked out really well for that feel.
Now the fact that you kind of changed your style in singing for that, did that affect the band in any way? Did they have to step up the way that they record or create their music?
You know, like really they just, well, Jared had to start, because the song is so piano based, like Jared's a bassist, but now he's a piano player too.
What?
So that totally, this song like changed our band essentially. Like Jared's now playing piano on that song and in multiple songs now. So Jared's like kind of slowly transitioning between bass and piano. So this song was like kind of like a big deal, I guess, now I'm realizing, like, and how it's like forming our band. Like it's changing my writing style and it's changing how we perform live, which is interesting.
You guys are definitely finding your sound all over again.
Yeah, it's weird. It's going to open up a lot of doors, especially songwriting. Like the stuff that Jared's been writing on like piano has been really cool. So it's like, I'm sure that that's going to get into there eventually as well.
Yeah. Now what's that been like with Jared learning the piano and you guys are writing music? Has that been kind of a disaster? Has that been just like a natural process?
Jared like picks up on musical stuff really easily, and he practices because he generally just really loves music. Yeah. So like he's already like diving into it. He bought a synth. He's bought a bass synth, and now he's like playing with different sounds and stuff. Like he's diving into it full heartedly. He's like, the bass is just sitting behind him in the corner and he's just, playing the keys. It's interesting.
So I mean, what's next? I mean, you kind of, we kind of need we need a new EP now.
I know, yeah. It could totally open up a lot of new stylistic things for us. Like we have keys in a lot of our songs, but it's background. The keys in Oh My Dear Lord like are very front and center. It's very part of that emotional feel to it, and that also kind of came from Celebrate. The way that I sang that chorus on Celebrate, which was very like brooding and emotional and like a deep part of my voice, that and very piano based, that kind of affected this new song. So it's like these kind of new lanes are opening up for us, like through these songs.
I mean, not even just with music, but I'm sure that's gonna open doors as far as like who you go on tour with and who, if we get to hear you on the radio, because I don't feel like we get enough of this kind of music on the radio as we should.
Yeah, it's cool. Like I mean, I like the piano thing, like, like bands like that are piano, like if you're doing piano and it doesn't sound singer-songwritery, like I think that's awesome. Like Elton John type stuff, just big bombastic piano parts are really cool if you can pull it off. So
Well, that's your goal now.
yeah, gonna be, you know, Elton John's hanging up the you know, I don't know. He probably doesn't wear a cape. He should though.
You never know.
I'm sure he has before. He's hanging up the cape, and yeah, maybe we're gonna step into the balladeer rock. You know, I don't know.
All because you wanted
to
to show them falsetto.
That's a lot. Yeah, yeah. I'm calling it. We're the new Elton John. I don't know what that means.
So moving forward, I mean, do you have any plans for tour? I know you're working on a music video right now, but any plans to getting back on the road?
Yeah, I think soon we would like to get out. Like, we're definitely gonna be hitting the road by summer. Like hell or high water, we'll be on the road this summer.